be focusing on OneDrive as part of the Office 365 suite. This is webinar 2 out of 4. We're just going to jump right in shortly. I'll give another moment or two for some people to trickle in. Today we'll do a little bit differently than last week, as we'll go through the deck and then I'm going to show a demo of both OneDrive online in regards to a web browser session and also the local application. Some of the differences, some of the way it syncs up, and just sort of how to use this to its full capability. Again, this will be a general overview. We'll do some deep dives into some feature sets, but what I really want to do at the end of this is have everybody be enabled to utilize this tool and to be able to use it, at least on the basic level, as a file repository. And then as you grow into it and it gets developed internally by your IT, sharing it externally, using revision history, things of that nature. So let's begin. Again, we went over Outlook last week. We had a couple questions that I will follow up and probably touch base on at the end of it. Next week will be SharePoint, which is OneDrive, just bigger as a company-wide. OneDrive's one, SharePoint's for sharing, and then we will be finishing up with Microsoft Teams and Office 365. Who am I? I'm Cameron Sarlotti, Manager of Support Services. Been here for 3 years, got a couple certifications. There's my LinkedIn, feel free to add me. Kid 1, Ronan with his chicken. Kid 2, Mr. Leon at the Smithsonian doing a dinosaur. And here we go. Any questions, concerns, feel free to bounce me at webinar@smbhd.com. Let's dive right into some of the OneDrive features. Now, we have a lot to cover. It's a basic tool that you can really just deep dive into, just like SharePoint, where you can do a lot of surface work, but then there's also many different silos and different facets of this technology that you can utilize. Some of the key features of OneDrive, obviously cloud storage, cross-platform syncing, Macs, PCs, mobile productivity. Really nice to be able to open up different documents via OneDrive from smartphone on the fly, on the go. Searching, the parsing and the database on the back end is a SQL database of your files. So if you do it right, specifically using Office 365 suites, as in Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, Access. If you're using those tools, it's even enhanced with the searchability. Data loss prevention is a big part of data nowadays. Employee leaves or some things happen, somebody misdeletes something, getting that data back is always important. Collaboration in business is becoming more and more important. Being able to share documents on the fly, work on live documents together, see what other people are doing at the same time is a really cool tool, part of this Office 365 suite. Admin rights, a little bit different than some of the other options with Google Drive or Dropbox. Yes, there's admin controls, but with OneDrive with business as a focus, allows you to get really granular on those permission sets. And modern development framework, where you can build some of your own custom options into it. Now, what does OneDrive do? Now, the functionality and the control of the documents. A large number of employees access their work files out of the office in ways that make their IT departments sometimes shudder, whether it's via personal emails, Dropbox, Google Docs, or the good old-fashioned flash drives or USB drives. By integrating OneDrive for business, employees can keep the same functionalities, but within the boundaries preset out by your company's IT. So it's really nice to have a lot of the function sets, but also the ability to control that by your local IT. Document backup. With OneDrive for business, files that would usually be saved to a folder or on a user's desktop or a laptop can now be stored via cloud storage instead. A great approach because if an organization loses access to a device, their files can still be easily accessed. Downtime, in this case, can be kept to a minimum. We all know somebody that lost a laptop at the airport or was on a trip and had it stolen. Obviously, they're working on very important documents, sometimes very secure that you need access to and make sure that they're been properly encrypted, but we won't get too far into that. The backup feature is I could lose my laptop at this moment and function on my mobile device. Or I could go to a secure workstation and be able to log into office.com, click sign in, have access to my email, my OneDrive, company SharePoint, pretty much a plethora of all the different Office 365 feature sets. Office 365 means you're able to work 365 days a year. Simple synchronization. Now, backing up your files can definitely be a daunting task for many of us, especially when we're working with large documents, sensitive documents, where we need the ability to synchronize this data. So backing up documents online is not just a security measure, it's also a great mobility feature. When users save files locally in their synchronized folder in OneDrive, these documents are automatically kicked up to their OneDrive folder in the cloud. This means users can easily access these docs from anywhere. And we will go through a quick demo to show you the timing of it, where we can put files into a web browser. You see it locally on your workstation. You put it locally on your workstation into your OneDrive directory and see it in the web browser functionality. Co-authoring feature. This comes along with SharePoint and the abilities to have multiple people working on the same document at the same time. Obviously, that could get to a mess if there wasn't proper communications between team members, but with how Office 365 works, OneDrive and also SharePoint, you're able to see who is doing what and pretty much when. And along with the functionality that I'll get into a little more later, is you have the revision history. That is a big key feature in SharePoint. We all have a very important document. We want to save every change, and we want to be able to roll it back in case data changes or the need of that document changes. And with that, we have the revision history that comes along with it on top of co-authoring. So what could be a mess is easily reverted if, in case somebody misclicks into a document, you're always able to roll it back from all these major and minor revision history changes on that document. File preservation, always important, including when people leave or if they are leaving on a not optimal terms and they could try to be disruptive by removing their own files that other people are waiting on or looking to view and modify. So with this, you have a recycling bin, you have admin access. So if a file is removed on purpose or by accident, you still have those options to recover those drives because of the admin options that comes with OneDrive. External sharing, a very, very important tool. As I touched base earlier in the Outlook webinar, I mostly do all my sharing inside of the document. We will go over this today. I have a live document that I will show you how I share it. Again, if we've already touched base on that and where that file is coming from. So if you have a file locally saved on your workstation, it's not within SharePoint, it's not within your OneDrive, and you click that share button, it will ask you where would you like to put that, in what repository, and from that you'll save it into its appropriate document folder, as in OneDrive or SharePoint, and then you'll be able to share it internally, externally, giving edit or read access to these documents. External sharing is a very popular feature in Office 365. You can choose many options. You can disable external sharing. You can only existing external users can have access to files. Files and sites can be shared, and you can also share these with anonymous people that do not have a Microsoft login using Hotmail, Outlook, or Office 365. So understanding OneDrive. Now, external sharing, it's a very important tool, and it's something that your IT department needs to have a very good conversation with ownership management, the executive team, on how much leeway and how much access you want to give to your local files. External sharing is a great tool. We've had clients that use that in and out in regards to their SharePoint, where they're sharing financial documents, things of that nature through secure means, where the file lives in our customer's SharePoint site. Their clients are able to access said documents, make their changes, read it, depending on, again, what level of access they would like to be granted, and then be able to revoke that access, put a time limit on that access, etc. Yes, this is both a pro and a con. External sharing is great for enabling collaboration, but the fact that any user can access files without logging in can increase the chance of confidential data loss. So it is a powerful tool. As I sort of touched on previously with SharePoint, it needs to be something that's invested upon. It's not something that you can obviously just go ahead and use the default options. It's not usually the best for sharing documents, but again, the OneDrive feature is a personal file repository. Once you get to that production stage, you should be putting that into SharePoint. There are additional features that a company could mitigate the risk by integrating other products such as Azure Rights Management, Windows Intune, but there are some options that you'd like to review there. Document management. As it is not intended for a place for permanent storage, there is no management features such as auditing or reporting on these documents. So what you would like to do is use this again as a staging platform. You have a document, you're working on a proposal, you have multiple revisions. Once you get that ready, you put it into its appropriate SharePoint library. All right. And storage. So everyone gets a terabyte free with their OneDrive, which I haven't really ran into anyone yet that has used that entire one terabyte, which is a lot of space. Most hard drives, most people are going to be using between 20, 50 gigs. It's a great tool. If you have a lot of data, you have a small hard drive on your laptop or workstation, you can keep a lot of your files in the cloud and what specifically you want on your laptop, so you can choose different folders to sync up, which is a really cool tool. Security. Now, redundancy of the files. Microsoft put a lot of investment into Office 365, not just the abilities of gaining access to files, sharing files, but also the redundancy of those files. There are many different applications, features, and technologies that Microsoft is using. Azure, they have different geo redundancies where your servers live in multiple locations in the United States. You can also kick it up to internationally. Same thing goes for OneDrive. So there are several ways that Microsoft keeps your files safe. Files are private unless you decide to share them. And to help protect your OneDrive files from hardware failure, they save multiple copies of each file on different drives and servers. So that means not just you have the redundancy of your workstation and the cloud, but even in the cloud, it's being saved on multiple drives, multiple servers across the US and possibly internationally. Adding security to your Microsoft account. There are additional levels. It's more about general Office 365 practices, but you are able to add phone numbers, alternate emails, security questions. That way, if you ever get your password, if you ever forget your password, if it's hacked, you have multiple ways of regaining access to the account. And again, as I've said with SharePoint, OneDrive, pretty much the Office 365 suite, building the foundation really sets the tone and helps these tools be very easily used. There's two-step verification, which is great. Multi-factor authentication, something that's coming up more and more when you do a password reset or get locked out of your account. You're able to utilize your mobile phone as a tool for this, where you are allowed to regain access to your account with that extra level besides just a secret password or have an IT do it, there are these options. Now, uploading files to your OneDrive. There are a few ways to accomplish this task. You have a web browser. You also have the local application on your workstation. Again, also with your mobile devices. So you get an email, you can save your files to your OneDrive directory, get to the office, get home, be able to open up your laptop, and that file is waiting for you to modify, review, or pass along. Here's some of the basic steps. You can upload your files. Again, you go to office.com, select upload files, you select the files and or folder that you like to upload, click open. In all aspects of this Office 365 suite, using office.com, I am not a huge fan of Internet Explorer. I like for Chrome for some applications. I use Microsoft Edge occasionally. If you're a Mac user, you have Safari or Chrome. Anytime you're using Office 365 and you're using a web browser, it is always recommended to use Internet Explorer. You have additional feature sets, functionalities, reporting, revision history. So if you really want the full abilities of Office 365, it is always recommended to use Internet Explorer. You have some of the same options with Chrome, Edge, Safari, drag and drop, but there are, again, additional feature sets that come with using Internet Explorer. Now, saving a file to OneDrive. Fairly straightforward. If you don't have your OneDrive set up, it takes about 2 clicks, just like logging into office.com. Email address and password will give you keys to your own castle in regards to email, OneDrive, etc. So saving those straightforward. You're in a Word document, you click File, Save. You have the ability to save it to your OneDrive or your local, and or both. You're saving it into your OneDrive, which can be locally stored and also kicked up to the cloud. Here's just a couple different steps of browsing and getting into that. Again, I will demo this out in a little bit of how to accomplish this. Again, recommending Microsoft Internet Explorer. Go ahead and you have the ability to upload an entire folder. So many times it is hard to consolidate your files into one repository. If you have a bunch on USB drives, network attached storage, file servers, locally hidden in your documents, it's easy to upload folders with that naming convention so you know exactly what's what and what needs to be put in production and what you need to focus on. Creating folder, straightforward, right-click or File, New, and Folder. Give it a name, and you're good to go from there. So this is one of the cooler features with OneDrive. OneDrive for Business turned into OneDrive, and at that time, with that major revision history to OneDrive, they added the ability to select what folders that you have access to. I will be honest, I use OneDrive not just for business, but my cell phone fills up with pictures, and I take all my pictures out of there and I dump it up to OneDrive, and then I tell it not to sync to my workstation. So then when I need to, I can go ahead and go to office.com, select OneDrive, and view all the pictures of said kids, trips, etc., freeing up my laptop and my phone and taking advantage of that free terabyte. As you can see here, in this example, you're saying, okay, well, I'm selecting, okay, I want these specific files or these specific folders to sync up. So I will see them on my laptop as a local file and also up in the cloud. You can select just cloud only, where you won't see those in your local application. Which is a great feature. Again, how a lot of newer laptops have 128 gigs of memory, 256, 512. You can easily fill that up if you do not have the option to do a cloud-only repository. How to share files and folders. Multiple options here. Again, you can do it web browser. You can do it from the application itself on your workstation. You can also do it within the Office 365 program suite from Excel, Word, PowerPoint, etc. In the top right corner of the share box, again, I'll click on that a little bit later once we review the demo. But it is an extremely cool tool. You can generate a link, put an expiration on it. Again, read or read-write access, contribute access are all those options when you generate that link, and be able to email it directly in there or copy and paste if you're using another email option such as Google Mail. So you have this option for getting a link, updates. As you pull it down, you can change your permission set, specifically when you share that document, which is a really cool set that we sort of touched base on a little earlier. And you can also, again, copy that link into an email message, Teams, Skype, GChat, whatever you like to do, which is really cool. You enter that person's email if you're doing it directly from the app or from a web browser. That's pretty much the key to all this, is sharing it to an email address. You have your option for can view, can edit, can they download it, can they actually reshare that? All these are different options that is set by the IT team for what level of sharing and resharing, if possible, that you'll be able to do. So there's, again, the feature sets, ability to invite users is turned on by default. You disable that feature. You can also change that sharing permission set, and also Office 365 admins can remove external users. Individuals can also be, you can take that invite back. So I created a document, a spreadsheet for billing, and I shared that with my boss. Well, the information is now changed and I have to update it. I can withdraw that sharing, that invite, if you will, update the document, and then reshare it, which is pretty good. Again, here's some of the options where you have, where you create this edit link. You can put a password onto the document or that link, which is really nice for another level of authentication. There's details there. You can manage access. You can remove the link, setting a password, and setting an expiration to that link are all cool tools in regards to sharing from OneDrive. You can create shared folders inside of your OneDrive, so your team can be working within your OneDrive. Again, the limitations compared to SharePoint are there. Again, you want to use this more individually, maybe specific with a small team. And anytime you go past that, you definitely want to use SharePoint. Here's some of the options and steps where you can create a shared folder within your OneDrive, give specific people access to that OneDrive shared folder. Syncing is very easy with OneDrive. You are able to log into the web browser session, sync, and then it will take all the files on your Office 365 OneDrive cloud infrastructure and bring it down locally to your workstation. So let's say that Bob lost his laptop and he had all his important files on there and he has an important meeting in a couple hours and IT scrambling. Well, we got a new image laptop. He signs in. He goes to office.com, clicks OneDrive and hits sync, and it will pull down all his folders and files that he preset as to be local files. So if he needs to be able to open it up on his workstation, just as I'm doing now and sharing a PowerPoint, it goes the same way in regards to sharing OneDrive files. Here are some details of setting up that sync. If you haven't already configured OneDrive on your workstation, will prompt you using this for work or personal. Select work to take advantage of your Office 365 work account, email address and password. As we saw before, where you're able to select individual folders of what will be synced locally to your workstation along with the cloud. These are all some of the options that you have with that. The searching parameters within OneDrive along with SharePoint are very strong. I'm not the most organized person when it comes to my files. I'm pretty much in the ballpark of I get my files, I dump it into my OneDrive or my SharePoint, and then when I need them, I remember what keywords or metadata is tagged to that data, and I search it from there. And based off time, date, and the naming of that file, sometimes the size also of the file, that helps me narrow down what documents I'm working on, especially who was the last one to work on something in regards to the SharePoint environment. So here's a way you're able to put some metadata down, input specific places, dates, names of files, and you're able to search that, which the search tool in OneDrive, again, which is similar to SharePoint, is extremely powerful. You can tag your OneDrive documents as along with SharePoint. It's called metadata. People use that for forms or collaboration on specific forms or documents. So you can tag this thing as you see here. This could be, city landscape, city garden. To be able to put that on as a label for that document. And then moving forward, you could search for landscape or garden. And then this file would pop up with that search with the metadata tagging. You can also create albums, which is really cool for photos, documents, and then you'll be able to sort of use that as a collaborative tool or just a way of, if you have a specific work event and you want to use this for marketing, it's a great tool for that, to put all your photos there, put some meta tagging on it, give it over to marketing, let them have at it, because then all that information is already populated and they're able to search against that. Now, using OneDrive on the web, you can access your SharePoint files without leaving OneDrive. OneDrive is a tool that you can use to access SharePoint. It's not the other way around. You can't use the SharePoint app to access OneDrive, but the tools are similar. Again, signing into Office 365, office.com, launch the app, put in your information, you'll be able to access your files that way. And using OneDrive, you can access SharePoint files. So Office 365 admins do have access to these files saved in OneDrive. So obviously you don't want to put anything extremely personal in there, but it is a great way for saying, hey, I lost this document, can't find it. IT team was able to log in, look through recycling bin, look through your OneDrive documents, be able to find that file for you, or again, disgruntled employee being able to recover those documents. In regards to OneDrive, as in SharePoint, it is its own file repository, so each individual person has pretty much their own SharePoint library. Permission sets can be managed through that OneDrive admin portal, and then it can be done by managing that personal site, being able to click these documents. All right, I'm going to open up real quick and take a break. We got a couple more slides. You know what, I'm gonna finish up these slides. We only got a couple left. Open it up for a couple questions on what we've already covered. And then we will go into the demo section. Hopefully, we come in a little bit early on this deck and these demos, but I wanna leave a fair amount of time if there's any questions, and actually just to show the soup to nuts in regards to setting up the account and how it works. Quick overview, this really doesn't pertain so much to you guys because you are OneDrive for Business or the Office 365 licenses with your business premium. So you have a lot of these high-level functions. Best practice, again, personal file share, it's for yourself. Using it for personal repository, ad hoc, local collaboration within a small team, small group. SharePoint sites are made for company-wide documents. So again, you're going to use OneDrive as a platform for staging of these documents. Once you're production ready, you will be putting that into SharePoint for the entire company to see. There are some limitations to OneDrive as it is, again, personal, so some of the reporting and auditing isn't there. These files are owned by the individual, so the ability to share them has to do with that person if the IT admin team grants access. If the user's account's deleted, you do have some time to retain that data or convert it, so that is something to consider there. And out of the box, OneDrive can be used well, but it definitely needs some fine tuning by IT, and that conversation needs to be had with the executive team to say how do we want people using OneDrive and what limitations we have for people to share documents. Basic OneDrive system requirements. I don't believe anybody's going to be using workstations that won't be meeting these credentials, or I'm sorry, these specifications, but it is important to have a functional workstation, mobile device, tablets, and or server. Does work on Mac systems for OneDrive and also SharePoint, something we can touch base later if needed. So just to recap real quick, cloud storage, cross-platform syncing, mobile productivity, searchabilities, data loss protection, collaboration, being able to administer users, users' OneDrives, and modern development network framework. So let me see. I'm going to jump in here. I'll share my other screen. We'll get to the demo shortly. All right, I'm unmuting everybody. I want anybody to jump in if you have any questions of what I reviewed. Obviously, we are going to go through the demo of setting up the OneDrive account, accessing, and going from there. So I just wanted to open it up, see if anybody had any questions at this time.
Hi, this is Kat. Can you hear me?
I can, Kat. Hello.
Okay, great. Would you be willing to review what a strong password is or equals?
Fuck you.
And then also to explain the two-step verification and what that looks like.
Sure. Okay, I'll mute this real quick. And I'm going to give you guys the ability to unmute yourselves if you have a question after I review this one. So the password complexity is a more important thing now than ever in the grand scheme of things. By default, Office 365 wants 8 characters, uppercase, lowercase, and a special character, along with a number. I believe the character cap is 16 at this time for Office 365. So you do want to have fairly stringent passwords, obviously not overly complex. A new trend right now is instead of using a very hard password with number signs, @ signs, exclamation points, and letters and numbers, uppercase, lowercase, is phrasing. So there are generators out there where you can go to generate password passphrases, something we've done internally, as in you can have 3 random words, very basic. Obviously, you would have to meet your complexities of your Office 365 tenant, which can be tenant to tenant besides that baseline, but you're able to use these passphrases like always walking into the mountains, it's 4 words, but if you meet that character cap or within that character threshold, that's what people are sort of moving to, as a phrase is almost harder to, and many times is harder to break than a single 10-digit, very complex password. In the multi-factor authentication, again, it's an Office 365 configuration, something that we use internally and a lot of our clients do, as everybody has their mobile device with them at all times. So I reset my password, or my password expires and I have to reset it. I go ahead and reset my password. I get a text message from Microsoft that says, hey, looks like you reset your password. Put in this 6-digit code inside your web browser or whatever session you're in if you're in Outlook, and then it'll authenticate you with that dual level. So you're able to reset a password, not bother IT, and be secure. So a lot of times if you get emails saying, oh, your password expired and you get locked out, you got to call IT. Well, if it's configured with multi-factor authentication, you're able to utilize your phone, get a phone call to your office number, have a passphrase on top of using a randomly generated code to use that. So it's a fairly cool tool, something that we've been doing more and more. So definitely something to look into. Does that answer your question, Kat, or questions?
Yes, thank you very much.
Also, I have some notes for you on those questions from before, but not really a straight answer for either of them because obviously there's some work involved there. So we've gone through the deck. We have a pretty good idea of general operation for OneDrive, and now it's time to jump into our next demo. All right, so as you can see, I have Windows open here. I have the OneDrive application. I created this recently with the webinar at smbhd.com accounts. From here, you can just type in OneDrive. It's actually on another screen right now, so that's my primary. So everybody that is using Office 365 Business Premium and higher, you have this already installed on your workstation. It might not be current if you're not using it, so when you open it up, log in, it might prompt you to update it. But everybody already has OneDrive on there. All you have to do, click it, log in with your email address and password, and then you're able to say, hey, this is where I want to keep my stuff. So let me do that now to some extent. So I'm opening up my OneDrive. So here we go. So let me see if I can make this my primary monitor. Come on now. For some reason, it thinks it's already that, so I'm just going to leave that there. I will go down here. So, all right, so let's open up our OneDrive. And I'll just share my different screen. How's that? Share desktop 1. All right, so now you should see my other desktop. Let me see if I can bring this over. All right, so here is my primary. If I go in, so here's your OneDrive icon. So again, I'll go back and do OneDrive. You see the desktop app is already installed. And then when you click that, it opens up there. Now, if you see right now, this pizza, it's a receipt. I bought my team pizza. I'm going to make the company pay for it. But I actually uploaded that via cloud, hence that cloud icon. Now, we have our checkboxes here. This means that once I drag a file here into my OneDrive local application, it will tell me if it is synced up or not. So let me see here. Let's just do this on the fly. So here's my bridge settings, dragging a file from my local workstation to my OneDrive directory. Now you see the little recycle sync blue, and it went to green. So what does that mean? Well, that means our files are kicked up to the cloud. Now, if I go into my OneDrive files, you're able to see we got our pizza receipt a few seconds ago by me. You can see who did it. And now, oh, I don't see bridge settings. I just dumped that file in there. All right, well, let's just do a quick refresh of my web browser session. And you're going to see bridge settings. From here, some of the metadata and or options you have for these files. Again, you have additional functionality when it comes to using the Office 365 suite. So instead of using Notepad or some third-party options, the best bang for buck and getting the best usage out of this tool is to make sure that you're using Word, Excel. Obviously, that's sort of a standard for everyone, but you get the revision history. So let me see here. I'm not really going to mess with this. I got our test doc. So I want to go some of the options. So you can open it, you can preview the file locally. This is called an ellipse, the 3 dots. You can create your share, you can copy a link to it, you can download that file locally again, delete it, move it, copy it, rename it. Microsoft Flow is a very cool tool. So it says, hey, I get a file in, anything that ends with PDF automatically gets emailed to my invoicing team, and then it emails my receptionist saying, hey, my expenses have already been added, please update this document. A lot of options there. Now, version history is one of the coolest things with OneDrive and SharePoint. Sort of I was talking about before, where you have your options to revert documents. We've all have that important spreadsheet that 800 people have worked on. It's been bouncing back and forth, and we're on revision 17. Well, you don't really need to do that anymore because of your revision history. So I don't know what's in this test doc, but let's go and find out. So nothing in here. So let's go and not do this demo. Continue. Thank you. So let's test. Wow. Let's test revision history. So if you're modifying docs, you can see that we are automatically saving whenever you're using a web browser session. So we'll save that. See if this is going to be revision 2. Now you can set your OneDrive and/or SharePoint to say, okay, every single time you add a sentence, you change the size of the document by a certain threshold, you have the ability to go back. So now we've updated this revision history. I'm going to close this out. And now we're going to refresh our screen again, sort of speed up the process here. Again, I'm using OneDrive here. We go to our ellipse. And we're going to go to our version history. Now you can see just now. So you can see who did it, what size the file was. So if I want to pull back this file, I can restore the previous version that was blank. And I can also open it or delete that revision. But you do have the ability to go in and see the document, right? I just clicked on it. It's opening up on another screen. I'll bring it over shortly. But you'll most likely see a blank document, which pretty much blank right here. That's the cool part about the revision history. So instead of having 10,000 iterations, you have one file with up to, I believe the default is 200 revisions, minor and major changes. So you can really just keep one document in OneDrive or SharePoint and modify that. So let's say, okay, well, I remember, and it'll tell you dates, who did it in regards to SharePoint. If I'm sharing this, you can see who did what when, which is a really, really cool thing to be able to have. So let's get out of version history and just go over some of the more options here with OneDrive. Again, the flow, really cool stuff. If you want to automate some of this, you have news articles that come in, you tag it, kicks it out. Really simple. It's more of like a flow chart. So drag and drop, really nice tool there. And properties is a pretty cool information here of details. Where you're able to see, preview what was done to this document, has it been shared, who can I share it with, what it is, and when was it last modified. So all in all, it's just a really cool tool for that information, what type of file, and just what's going on with that. Now let's go back and look at the application itself. So you can see, again, we have these statuses saying, oh, this file is in the cloud. That's where we updated it. You have some additional options for sharing, if you can see here. Zipping it, obviously that's some other things there. You can give access to people. Including it to libraries is, again, local, and sharing it with OneDrive. Now, here is a pretty cool tool. Anyone with this link can view it. So right now, if I share my OneDrive screenshots that I took to build this deck, I would send this to Kat or someone, and they would be able to view this document if they have this link. I can copy the link here, share it. You can send it out via email, which is pretty cool. So that obviously I created that link. I can share it however it was, and it gives that access. So let's get back to share. You have more apps, and then you can have how do you want to share it? You can share via OneNote, Skype, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. If you want to even post that to Twitter, which again with Office 365, it's forever changing. So it's sort of hard to keep up with all the changes, which is sort of cool and also keeps us on our toes. Now, let's go into some of the admin options that you'll dig into a little bit, but I just wanted to review with everyone just so that they can see what your options are. So you right-click on your two little clouds here. If the clouds are gray, which I would imagine a lot of you would see, that would be because you're not logged into it yet. So I'm not going to really remove my account here, but let's see. So we have our ellipse inside of here, so we can open this folder directly in there, which again was this. So you have your option there. You can also double click, brings you right into your main folder. Syncing, so there are some options. I use my hotspot a fair amount of times traveling, on customer sites, at conferences. So you can pause your syncing because it can use up bandwidth. If anybody's used Dropbox before or Google Drive, it will use up a chunk of your bandwidth for your local workstation. So at times where if I'm doing a webinar, I really don't want it syncing 5 gigs of data using up half of my workstation's pipe, if you will. So pausing it is an option sometimes, which does help. Now we can jump into settings, which is fairly basic but pretty cool. Start automatically, always a good idea. Saving space, files on demand helps out too. Again, they add feature sets to this all the time. You can add additional accounts to this, which is really cool. So I have a couple accounts. I can add all of my accounts. If I have 3 or 4 different SMB emails, I can have those all in one OneDrive. We've used this for clients that migrated from one Office 365 tenant to another one, where we added both the old tenant accounts, you know, cam@company1, email address, password, and then I put cam@company2, email address and password, and then I see both of them here. I was able to drag and drop all my files, easy peasy, moving all your files from one source to another. Now the choose folders, we have one location is syncing. So here's the folders that right now we see inside of my webinar folder. Let me see if I can get into that. Right, just double click here. Oh, it's not going to play nicely there, so let's just go here. So we can see right here, we have 3 folders, 3 options. So make all files available. So this again makes all the files live locally. But I don't want online only. I want that just to stay online. So you are able to hide these. They stay in OneDrive, but they won't be available on your PC. And they're going to be deleted off of it. So now I'm going to hit OK. So I want OneDrive screenshots and I want webinar clips to stay on my laptop and the cloud, but I want online only to stay only in the cloud. Hit OK. Oh, what happened? Just disappeared there. You can see how live that is. Oh no, I lost my data. Well, that's not really the case because it's still going to be here. So online only is still right here. I actually don't believe that you'll see anything different. Obviously, you can see some of the tags there of just when the last time something was changed. But now, let me see what we can see here for some metadata. So I edited that 6 hours ago. And now we see that. So if this was full of my pictures, running out of space on my laptop, on the hard drive on my laptop, I click online only, it wipes everything out locally, keeps it in the cloud, save the day. So just general best practice, you want to have your hard drive, in the grand scheme of things for performance, under 60% saturation. So that means if you have a 100 gig hard drive on your computer, obviously that's small and not standard, you don't want to use any more than 60 gigs on it, because you want to leave that last 40 gigs for page file, for growth, and just general optimization and underutilization of your hard drive, just to keep things as fast as possible. You have performance issues and your hard drive's working overtime, you're just giving yourself a hard time in the grand scheme of things. So again, let's get back into some of the settings for here. You do have abilities to manage the network speeds. So you can say, okay, I want it to adjust automatically. So if I am doing a webinar and OneDrive is just cranking away, it sees that some other application needs to take precedence, it will automatically dial down. I haven't really tested that much, but it seems like a pretty cool tool. If you're technical, you can actually limit it to how many kilobytes per second up and down, which is pretty cool. General Office, when you sync your files locally, then you can do that sharing and do live edits. And then you have sync conflicts. If it has an issue, if you use special characters or some level of corruption happens to the file, it'll ask you, hey, the file that I have locally on your workstation is different from the one that's on the server as in the cloud. It gives you an option to say which one takes precedence. This one was modified March 1st. This one was modified March 5th. Usually we'll take the latter and get the later file. But again, you'll know your documents better than anyone else. Simple about, not a whole lot to it. Your OneDrive build and just general getting help. We're your CSP partner, so we're happy to help you if you're having any OneDrive issues. That's just part of our agreement. Some of the cool tools. So being able to sync files, copy links, using Flow, all of these are already part of the OneDrive. You're already paying for it. You get 1 terabyte per user, so use that however you feel fit. Again, I've sort of gone over some of the ways I use this, but it's just a really cool tool. Revision history, recovery in your recycle bin. You know, you can see stuff that's in here. You can select it. You can restore your files there. You can see what you're sharing out, what's been shared with me to my OneDrive, what's been shared by me from my OneDrive, and just recent documents that I've gone through. This is sort of an easy way of just saying, okay, well, what have I done recently? And go into recent and be able to say, okay, well, I messed with this test file. I'm working on this deck. Pretty straightforward. Searching is really cool. So clip art, again, if this was huge, you'd be able to see, okay, I got that folder, get right into that folder and be able to see all the different files that are in there. Again, when you use SharePoint, it's going to be the same platform, which is really nice. So this could be a good introduction to using SharePoint. The proper way is if everybody gets used to OneDrive, using it for themselves, for their own files. And as Kat and I work through this SharePoint project and start getting the foundation built properly, when we make that next step to use SharePoint off of the multiple file servers, it'll be a lot easier integration and steps where you say, okay, well, you know, Tom was working on this file and this is what he did then. These are how it's being shared. This is how big the files are. Let me get some more information. And again, you can go into that on each individual file level, each individual folder level, and then you have the admin rights for it. So that is the OneDrive overview, how to use it, both web and application. We got a few minutes left before the end of this webinar, so again, I'm going to open this up. You do have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself. And if we don't have any questions, we'll wrap up in a little bit. All right, well, I would like to thank everybody for their time to review OneDrive with us, some of the functionality of it. Next week, we will be jumping into our SharePoint, which I believe is going to be fairly exciting. We'll do a little bit of double touching in some of the functionality, but I believe it'll be a pretty good refresher. And I'll also try to build out a demo site to show you how it's going to be looking forward, moving forward. Again, I have a call with Kat later and current IT to see how current files are being structured, things of that nature. Hopefully, if we have time, I'll build that into my demo so you guys will see as a little preview of what is coming. Again, this is Cam from the SMB Help Desk. Appreciate your time. Hope you know a little bit more about OneDrive, and I will see you next week for SharePoint. Thank you very much, everybody.